Welcome back to the Israel Collective podcast. Israel Collective family, we're so glad to have you joining us today. Our dear friend Dylan Manley is not able to join me today, but I am so excited for my guest today, Chauntel Dauster.
What's up, Israel Collective?
What's good, IC?
Hey, IC fam.
This is Israel Collective.
Chauntel Dauster, you know her. She has a huge social media following. She's a really gifted content creator, businesswoman, mother, wife, etc. The list goes on. She's also an Israel Collective alumni who's gone to Israel with us twice now. She and I just spent February in Israel together, just on a really impactful experience. Chauntel, what else should people know about you? Did I miss anything?
My husband's a pastor. He's the pastor of our church. So we were very busy with ministry life doing that as well. So
you do so many amazing things, and you're such an awesome woman of God and just ambassador for Christ. And so I'm just really glad that you are here today. So I randomly called you up. You got an email from me in January saying, hey, we are going on this Israel trip to show solidarity and show support for the people in Israel who are hurting right now since October 7th. Mm-hmm. And you were an immediate yes. And you're so excited and so willing. And you told me that your first trip to Israel with the Israel Collective really impacted you. Can you tell us about that experience, and what about that first trip left such a strong mark on you?
Yeah. So I went on November 2022 with a group of content creators and some pastors, and it was an amazing trip. I've always wanted to visit the Holy Land, but experiencing for myself and seeing the Bible, ancient stories come to life, seeing it in the real world, the real ruins and the rocks and places where Jesus was. And it just was, it impacted me in a way that I can't really put it into words. It was also just a really eye-opening thing, because it was a biblical tour as well as a geopolitical tour. And so I loved, my favorite things were experiencing the stories of the Bible and going through those biblical sites. But it was really eye-opening for me to be exposed to a lot of the geopolitical tension that Israel go through. I just was frankly not super educated on that, and to just learn so much and be exposed to all of that was also incredibly so in every facet of the trip. It impacted me, and I left a different person. I never read the Bible the same way. I feel strongly that every believer, if they have the privilege to do that they should experience the Holy Land for themselves. And I loved it. I kept in touch with the friends that I made in Israel, for the friends that I made in the trip, and I just felt so honored to have been a part of it.
That's really amazing. On my first trip to Israel, what really stood out to me was I realized I had been reading the Bible my whole life as if it was a story that began and ended, right? Like Genesis through the end of the book, that the people of Israel, they're all throughout the Bible. But I thought that their story ended when they stopped writing books of the Bible. And when I got to go to Israel, I realized, wow, this beautiful story that began with the heroes of our faith, Abraham, Moses, Esther, this story didn't end when they stopped writing books of the Bible, right? Like the story of Israel continued on, and and we can leave our mark on that same story, and we can touch and experience God's faithfulness to the people of Israel when we go there.
Yes, the experiencing the culture was so special too. Like, yes, the biblical sites, the geopolitical education, but like being in touch with like what they do, like experiencing Shabbat with a Jewish family, and seeing the Western Wall during Shabbat, and experiencing that. It's just, you know. It's like, it's kind of like when you go to the Grand Canyon and you can see a postcard of it and say like, it's amazing. That looks, beautiful. But whoever has been there will say like, you have to experience it for yourself. You have to see it with your own eyes. And that's what it felt like, to just experience and see the culture, see, like I said, the Bible come to life, and just be so inundated with such rich experiences from the people that are there. It was just so, so, so special. And I got back, and I just was so hungry to learn more, and I bought books. I just loved it so much.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned the Western Wall on Shabbat,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's beautiful and amazing to behold anytime you go. But
Hmm.
on Friday night, when everyone is gathered there to pray and they're so excited to pray and fellowship together and celebrate the Sabbath beginning, I don't want to
Hmm.
use the word magic because
Hmm.
we're Christians, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love, there's just, such a beautiful, majestic, powerful experience.
Hmm. Yeah, to see their fervor in their,
Yeah.
just the way that they are so intentional about setting that day aside, and they're excited to worship, and their reverence was just
Hmm.
like not just impactful, but just an example. Like, I was so inspired by it. It's awe inspiring for me. It really was.
Hmm. And I love that you came back and you were like, okay, I have to know more. Like, I love when people get obsessed with things,
Yeah,
whether it's Israel or,
yeah, yeah.
a new hobby or just whatever. Just like really committing and learning everything you can know about a new subject that has impacted you. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, there was this hunger to learn more, and that continues. That continued as a solidarity trip too. I got the Israel course that Kufi offers. There's just this hunger to understand and learn more, that like I said, I was interested in going before, but it wasn't to the level of like passion that I have now, for the people, for the culture, for the
Mhm.
nation, for the Holy Land. I feel passionate about it now. And before it was just like, oh, I would love to go, it just kind of grew, and it was something that was natural, and it came directly from being able to experience that.
Yeah. So, my next question for you. So, this solidarity trip that we just went on, we
Hmm.
spent a little more than a week visiting Israeli communities in northern Israel that have been evacuated from their homes because of tensions with Hezbollah in Lebanon. We met with people who survived October 7th. We met with a father whose two sons have been taken hostage by Hamas since October 7th. And we visited some villages and kibbutzim and towns where Hamas terrorists attacked on October 7th. And we saw the impact of that. It was a very different trip from
Hmm.
your first trip. Why was it important for you to be a part of this solidarity
Totally different.
experience? Like, why did you say yes when I
Yeah.
invited you? Yeah.
Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind. Well, there's several reasons, but in this day and age, we're all inundated with media reports, yeah, and we know there's agenda behind those reports that are being shared, and sometimes it's hard to know what to believe in, right? And so, to be able to lay my eyes on truth for myself, was really important, to be able to hear from real people and to see the real ramifications, both emotional and physical, in spiritual, in every way, to be able to, it just really is a whole different level of just hearing, oh, there's 138 hostages being held. Like that's just becomes a number in our minds. And you realize that the attack was horrific, and you hear these things and you believe these things. But to be able to experience and hear from people there is something that I wanted to do, as hard as it would be for to process all of it. I wanted to experience, because I was deeply impacted when the attack happened here. In fact, I called, some of my friends that I made on the trip up there, one of our guides, Ron, just to kind of hear from them, check on them, but also like ask more questions and see how things are going here. I wanted to see how people are here, how this has impacted the land 5 months later. And so that was definitely, an immediate yes for me. And then secondly, like, in scripture, in that parable of the Good Samaritan in the Bible, I think is in Luke, where it talks about like not passing up an opportunity to show kindness. This was very clearly an opportunity laid out to me to show kindness, show the love of God, to be a support for the Jewish people. And so again, like I did, it was an immediate like yes, hard yes. And I don't make decisions based on fear, and I didn't want to let that hold me back, and it was never really something that concerned me. And so with all of that put together, it was just like this immediate desire to be there. And I am so grateful. As you said, it was a completely different experience than the first trip. It was a completely different focus. But I feel like I know and understand the Jewish people so much better because of it now.
What stood out to you on that trip? Like, yeah, like what were your like highlights or moments that really impacted you on this most recent trip?
Yeah. Well, I think what impacted me the most was hearing stories and seeing directly how this impacted the Jewish community, not just from like East South and Gaza, but the displaced families from North, and how the whole nation has been affected by it. And you mentioned us hearing from a family member of a hostage. And it's, like I said, one thing to hear about hostages being held, but to sit across from an absolutely broken man who has two sons that are being held hostage for 5 months now, and to hear and to have this palpable grief almost, it tugs you, it rips your heart, and it just, the level of compassion and empathy is just amplified. It's impossible not to be amplified when you're hearing directly from people that like had terrorists on their porch and that were just trying to just stay in the safe rooms. Like hearing story after story and see, that was the most impactful thing to me. And also in a bit of a surprising way is to hear that despite of all that, I did not, out of all the people that I've interacted with, and we interacted with a lot of Jewish people, I did never sense any hatred towards the Palestinian people. Yes, indignant about what Hamas has done in what they have endured because of the evil that Hamas perpetrated, but not towards the Palestinian people as a whole. One of the things that, like, I will never forget it, Dest, when we were in that cemetery, that it was from one of the nearby kibbutzes, and one of the residents of this kibbutz was just kind of taking us around, and he was telling us the people that he knew that had been murdered, and telling us all of these horrendous experience. And he was standing by a tombstone of a young man, a 17-year-old surfer young man who was very close to his son and who was his neighbor and who he knew very well. And in a very like spontaneous manner, he was telling us, you know, I, you know, don't, you know, our, it feels like our blood is cheaper. I'm trying to like quote him exactly, but he said something very close to the extent. It feels like our blood is cheaper. We experienced this just a couple generations ago. And I'm not saying the Palestinian blood is cheaper. It's Palestinian, everybody's blood, every blood that is spilled grieves me. And, you know, Palestinian and Christian and Buddhist. And he just started naming all these people. This man that has really, truly a lot of reasons to be jaded and bitter. And he was speaking in this manner was just really impactful to me too. That despite of so much trauma and tremendous unspeakable pain that I could sense that from the people that I spoke to, that there wasn't hatred, an underlining hatred or revenge even. And so that was surprising to me in a way, but really impactful too.
Yeah, you know, that really stood out to me also. I was very surprised, if I can say this honestly. We met with a farmer, an orange farmer who has a orange farm near a kibbutz called Mefalsim. And we volunteered one day helping him pick oranges because usually a large number of people from Gaza come in and work on this farm. And you actually asked him the question, would you welcome back those workers, those Palestinians? Would you welcome them back to work on your farm after the war? And he said yes. And that lack of hatred, that lack of discrimination. I mean, I would have completely understood if he said no for
Right.
even just
Right.
for security
Exactly.
reasons. I would have completely understand if he said no, but he said no. I would welcome them because they, there are people in Gaza. Not, it's important to make the distinction between Hamas and between the Palestinian people, right? And there
Exactly
are
right.
people in Gaza that are not a part of Hamas, and they want to provide for their families. They want a better life, and most of Gaza is, the population is young people who want a future to look forward to. And that understanding, that empathy, and that compassion for that, and that the willingness to welcome back those people from Gaza really, really struck me. That hatred, it was not there.
Yeah. In fact, I don't, even on my previous trip, we got to meet with with lots of people too, but also some Palestinians. And we went to the West Bank in Bethlehem and went to a church there. And just, you know, just, I think people would be surprised here in the Western world to learn that there isn't this animosity or competition or hatred. Like that is not what I sense at all from the Jewish people towards Palestinians, and seeing them as just, people of a different nation, And so, yeah, that is, I think, a side that people don't realize, and to be able to see and experience and hear things like that, just like what you just shared, like that farmer shared, the compassion that people still had despite of what they've been through, like to see that even after the war was truly like honorable. Like it was something that I respect. And like you said, I would have understood if they didn't feel that way. But they still did. And I'm sure obviously is not all. I'm sure there's some people that don't feel that way.
Right.
But we interacted with a lot of people, and that was
Sure.
not the overarching sentiment that I ever took away, ever. Right? Don't you agree?
So, yeah, no, I do agree. I don't remember anyone saying anything even remotely unwelcoming or, hatred towards civilians in Gaza. Absolutely not.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah.
So, my next question for you, so when we were picking oranges, that was such an enjoyable experience because we were in the sun and it was, sunny, and we're picking oranges, and I felt like we got to put our hands to something to really make a difference, because when you're in a
Mhm.
place that has so much hurting and so many problems that are just beyond our scope of control, right? Like, we can't fix everyone's problems, but picking oranges felt like something we could actually put our hands to help with and support. Um,
Mhm.
but one of the heavier days that just was, obviously, we were really confronted with
Mhm.
how big the hurt and trauma was, and just how beyond what we as mere mortals and humans could fix, was when we went to
Mhm.
these places where these horrible attacks occurred. We went to a kibbutz called
Mhm.
Re'im, and we saw an entire street where, like, young people lived that was just almost completely destroyed. We also went to the
Mhm.
Nova Music Festival site where hundreds of young people were killed. What was that experience like for you?
Well, when you're at a place where literal slaughter happened, you know, and massacre, and to be there and see the aftermath of it, I mean, it's heavy. It's difficult. It's somber. It's a lot to take in. And but again, I am so grateful that I experienced this because I was
Mhm.
able to just have a little bit of that, the taste of what it would have been like to have been there. Specifically,
Mhm.
when we were in, the kibbutz, there were still like articles of clothing that were tore off Hamas terrorists to make sure that they didn't have like explosives on them, and to see shoes and articles of clothing, and even like what we gather is evidence of a house where rape and murder happened after that. It's just one of the most horrendous, feelings and experiences, because you feel the darkness, of what unfolded there. And to be in the music, in the Nova Music Festival site where, there's still like, lots of memorials and pictures of people that were there, and to walk through there. And I just kept imagining, like, it's a large field, and it's beautiful, and there's like, trees. And I just kept imagining people running for their life on that day, just aimlessly, not knowing what was happening, and confused and scared, and to see the faces of so many young people, and again to put
Yeah.
a face to a name, and to walk through, to realize, oh, she was here and he was here, and see, connect some stories. Some of them had like the social media links. Some of the people that were in pictures, they were held hostage, and so you could see, like, connect their social media link. And so I later on went and saw, like, even the whole story of that specific person. It makes it so much more personal because it is. This is a person that was affected. This is a daughter. This is a DJ that was working that day, or a bartender, or a security guard. And to know their stories, again, like, hits you in a very deep and heavy way, in a way that makes you want to advocate for them even more and to be a voice for them even more. And so, as difficult as it was to experience, I think it was very important and truly one of the reasons why I went. And I knew it would be hard. And in fact, it was difficult coming back from it. It's difficult, like, to snap back into our duties here in America, where people are hardly affected by the war, right? When you have been at a place that's so heavily affected by it, and it took a while, and I'm still kind of, in fact, this week I have experienced nightmares over it, as I did on October 7th. Like, my subconscious is clearly affected by it. I was running from terrorists in one of those kibbutzes, in one of those nightmares. So it affected it in a level deeper than I could even understand. Again, my subconscious being affected. But it's just a tiny bit of what they're experiencing. I got to experience just a sliver, right? Like a tiny bit of the trauma
Yeah.
and the pain that they are experiencing. So it's an honor, truly, to come alongside them and to just have a little bit of that taste.
Yeah. And people were, as we met other Israelis, they were so surprised that we came to bear
Hmm.
witness to this trip and
Hmm.
to support them in this hour. And I know that that day was very hard for me as well, and just processing it. And honestly, I'm still processing it. I know that it
Hmm.
will be with me forever, because it was
Hmm. Hmm.
history that we witnessed. It was truly history, and just sharing in that, having, I won't say sharing in it, but having a snapshot of that pain.
Right. Hmm.
It's, there aren't really words for it.
Hmm. Yeah. And as you said,
Hmm.
to see, it was very endearing to see how grateful and surprised they were to just have us. People, just strangers, would come up like, "Thank you for being here." Like,
Hmm.
surprised that we were there, confused, some of them, of why we were there, but just so
Yeah.
grateful. Like, I mean, we heard from so many kind, beautiful souls. Just the gratitude, overwhelming gratitude to feel supported. And we're like, of course, we're so glad that we're here. So it was endearing to see that too, like their gratitude for just our presence. We were doing tangible things. Yes, we were helping with agricultural needs, in the area, and we volunteered and did fun things with IDF soldiers and all that, and it was sweet to be able to bless them in that tangible way. But just our presence, I think, was just so encouraging to them, and that was so sweet.
I agree. During the trip and coming back from the trip, we both got many negative comments on social media.
Hmm.
How has that affected you? What is your advice to someone who wants to be a part of an experience like this, but they're concerned about the negativity online?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, as I said before, just by expressing compassion and solidarity for the people there, we received, online hatred, right? So again, it's just
Mm-hmm.
a tiny sliver of what they're experiencing for existing as Jewish people. And so when I put it in that perspective, for me, it's an honor, to be able to stand alongside them, against terrorism and against anti-Semitism. It's an honor, and I don't see it as, well. It's not fun to receive hatred. I'm not rejoicing over
Right.
that, but it's just gonna come with it. And again, to be able to have a little bit of a taste of what what they're experiencing for simply being the nation of Israel. And you know, when it comes to certain people, when they're making a lot of noise online, zealots specifically, you know, there's not really a place for a healthy discussion. It wouldn't be a productive thing to engage with some of these people that feel so
Right.
zealous about their position. And so, I mean, I just don't engage with that. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people that are genuinely uninformed, that they don't realize what is happening on the land. And I have also received a lot of comments and feedback from people who are like, thank you for sharing this. I truly had no idea. I did not understand. They're like genuinely ignorant about the situation, and to be able to be a voice for that and to bring clarity to people from a place of truth, from a place of, you know, experiencing what is happening there was an honor, and I'm so glad. And so for people that are hesitant about experiencing something like this is what I would encourage. Is truly is an honor to be a voice of clarity, a voice of truth based on what the experiences that you you know, might have with what's happening in the land. And so you know, as difficult as it is to receive all of that, it just comes with it. It wasn't a surprise. We both knew this would happen, and it continues to happen. But I think is important to have to be able to bring perspective from a place of clarity, from a place of fairness, from a place of you know, genuine explanation for what we experienced there with the people there. So,
You know, Chauntel, my scripture guiding the Israel Collective and guiding this podcast and guiding our efforts is John 1:5. It says in the New Living Translation, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." And the
amen.
vision
Yes.
accompanying that is that we would empower, as the Israel Collective, that we would empower Christian leaders to shine a light in the darkness and not let darkness, whether that's negative comments or fear, not letting the darkness overcome us, whatever truth we are speaking out for. And I just want to thank you for exemplifying that and for your boldness and for being that light in the darkness.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for the invitation to be there. It was just an experience of a lifetime that I will forever behold. I'm not the same person from the first trip and now from the second trip, and will forever, you know, want to be a voice that advocates for our friends there and for the nation of Israel. And I'm just so honored, and I'm so grateful for our friendship now, for all the new friends that we have made. It's just so sweet. So many beautiful things have come from us. I'm so grateful for you, Destiny.
Thank you. Yeah, I really love this whole experience, and the group that we were with just really was the cherry on top, just really added to this experience and really set it apart. Shantel, thank you so much for being a part of this experience. Thank you for your leadership, and thanks for being on the Israel Collective podcast today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
We want to thank you so very much for joining us on this episode of the Israel Collective podcast.
We invite you to continue the conversation with us. Stay connected by subscribing, share your insights by commenting, and don't forget to be a light in the darkness.
So once again, like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell so you get all the information from us.